and welcome back to the studio. Today is September 14th, and there have been a lot of changes going on in this space in the past 4 months since our last video update. Over the past 4 months, I have really been focused on bringing this series together with the goal of having 12 by the end of the year. So right now I have 4 of them done, 3 in progress, and so I am getting closer and closer to that total number for the year. But the biggest thing I've observed is I like having multiple going on at one time, and that includes multiple scales of pieces too. In addition to this one series of 12 pieces, I've also been exploring new styles and new scales on smaller pieces, smaller studies that have really informed the larger series as it's evolved and grown over the past few months. Now, from the large series standpoint, though, I am definitely leaning more towards the panel. All 12 of the 3 foot by 3 foot pieces will be on panel. I did experiment earlier this year with working on canvas, and while it is a different experience, I like the effects that panel has, I think, a little bit more. Not because I'm anti-canvas, but you can definitely just get a different mark with the tools that I use. And so that is definitely something I'm leaning into, of sticking with the panel with my current body of work. Other things that I'm really exploring are scale, line, and color, as well as the colors in their intensity within each given piece. Line and color has been probably the most top of mind element visually with these works in terms of the role that they play compositionally and conceptually within the pieces. So a lot of the work right now explores the idea of bringing structure to chaos, how structure and routine and society are then imposed on top of abstract gestural forms, our human nature as people. And so in each individual piece, I'm really exploring the idea of how these two interact, how they support each other, how they obstruct each other, and how they redefine each other in new ways, where they lend support, where they make each other shine, but also where the view is obstructed. Especially in new pieces, my 18-inch panels, I really push that to the limits, going from one extreme to the other, of complete opacity versus complete transparency as I layer these forms and colors together. Line especially, I'm really exploring different line weights within a piece compositionally, how lines together or separated can bring strength or emphasis to an area of a piece, and also how it is defined by the different layers that it's on top of. The gestural forms behind it, transparent layers on top of it. Does it define an edge, or is a line defined by gestural forms? These are all things that within all pieces that I'm making right now are really top of mind, and it's honestly a lot of fun exploring. When I first envisioned this large scale series of 12 pieces, I thought I would be doing them all together at one time, but having scale as an element where I can make studies in smaller pieces to explore concepts that I then bring to the larger series has been super, super rewarding and a lot of fun too. Color has been another thing that I've really been experimenting with in this series, especially when it comes to the concept of a sunrise. So the series of 12 is all about the sunrise, so exploring colors of the sunrise, embracing that energy of the sunrise, but all painted before sunrise for the color elements. But as I've been diving deeper into this series, piece by piece, I've really been pushing that of what are those colors? I mean, day to day, depending on the heat, depending on the weather, depending on the time of year, you really get different versions and experiences of the sunrise. Some mornings are super intense, vibrant colors, some are softer. And so as a cohesive series, I'm really exploring what those would look like together, which is super rewarding. Can they conceptually speak to one another, even if the intensity of their color palette is so varying? The colors within the sky also, I mean, there's blues, yellows, oranges. There's really such a range of color. And so especially if 2 pieces are next to each other with starkly different color palettes or tones, how do they speak together, and what do I want them saying to each other? And it's fun pushing that boundary, really questioning every decision, but also letting each piece become what it needs to be in the conversation. This, I think, is an especially unique situation because I know that this series of 12 in particular will be displayed together. I definitely see this series expanding beyond the 12, 3-foot by 3-foot paintings in this series, and even within the smaller pieces that I'm working on now, I definitely consider them part of this series, even if they're smaller studies or just smaller scale. But knowing that the 12 3-foot paintings will be displayed at the Garner Performing Arts Center in March, and now a new exciting announcement that it'll be at the Sertoma Art Center after that, I'm more and more conscious of the narrative arc that will happen when they're all displayed side by side. Typically, as an artist, you don't always have that luxury. You don't always know where or how the pieces will be displayed, how many will be displayed at the same time. You may have one in isolation. You may have 10 to 15 in a solo exhibition. But rarely do you get the opportunity to know that in advance while you're making a body of work together. And so I definitely consider it a huge privilege and an amazing opportunity with this series, knowing that they will be on display, knowing this space because I've had an exhibition there before in the past. And so especially wanting to make sure that that cohesive narrative is met, but that is posing some challenges in terms of overthinking it probably a little bit too much. Everything from the color palette visually being cohesive, the titles, the concepts. And so especially as we go forward into the end of the year, I'm still on track to finish this series by Thanksgiving. I'm so excited to keep opening the doors for our First Friday events every month, as well as open hours throughout the week here at Art Space, where I have my studio, to keep getting input from community members, seeing what people react to, and being able to share the creative process, showing works in progress, and then having them graduate to finished pieces that are then available. So right now, I feel like we're at a super exciting stage of the series. I'm starting to photograph the completed pieces to make prints of them and bringing more and more pieces to life within the series. So as we near the end of the year, the next studio update will probably be near the end of the process. You guys have really been able to see the behind the scenes time-lapse videos of these pieces coming to life. And so I am so excited to see what these pieces become. And so I just want to thank everyone who's been along this journey with me, continuing to share and support from afar and online. If you are in the Raleigh area, I would love to have you come to the studio and see these pieces in person, or maybe you can catch them in their 2 exhibitions next year in 2023. But for now, there will definitely be long studio days ahead in my future to wrap up this series and really push the boundaries creatively. So especially going into Q4, I see myself being in the studio a lot. There will be long studio days, long studio weeks, really bringing this series together. And I'm excited to be able to share that process with you. Thank you so much for being here. We'll see you in the next update. Cheers.